Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sophomore Citizens, Episode 1. We are so excited to be here. My name is Gigi, and I'm joined with my sister Liesel and my best friend Lily.
Hey, guys.
Hey, y'all. Let's start out with some introductions. Let's start with Lily. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What's your deal?
Okay, so like the three of us, I am from Los Angeles, California. My deal is that I am a rising senior at the University of Wisconsin, and I'm just living in LA for the summer, having a lovely time with my best friends and sort of sisters.
Yes, we are sort of sisters. I love that, Lily. Gigi, let's hear a little bit about what makes Gigi, Gigi.
Sure. So, I find myself attending California Polytechnic State University at San Luis Obispo.
Wow.
Wow. That's a lot of words.
I, too, am a rising senior. Though, in the home stretch of my academic career, I have no idea what I want to do with my life, other than Sophomore Citizens, of course. Particularly during quarantine, I find myself running and reading and having a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's great, Gigi. And I'm Liesel. I'm Gigi's older sister. I am 23 years young, and I recently graduated from NYU, and now I work at a nonprofit that helps with children's literacy. During the quarantine, as Gigi said, we've been focusing on our reading and our running, self-improvement, and also quarantine sort of inspired us to reignite our idea of starting a podcast. So that's kind of where Sophomore Citizens came in. And maybe we can spend a minute just explaining the name of Sophomore Citizens and kind of our idea behind that. Gigi actually brought up this idea about sophomore and what it means. Gigi, do you want to unpack that?
Sure. So I first introduced the Sophomore podcast simply as the name that succeeded the Opinionated podcast, which is pulling from way back in the archives. I suggested Sophomore podcast because I had a professor a couple years ago who explained to us that the word sophomore is the combination of two Greek words, which mean like wise fool or wise baby. And it's supposed to be, as the second year of the 4 years of either high school or college, you are still on the younger side, but you're wiser than those fresh babies, And so I felt that was representative of where we're at. We're not totally babies. We're not dum-dums, but we still are, emerging adults who don't really know what the heck we're doing. And so it just felt right that we would be wise babies or wise fools, sharing our opinions and talking about what's going on in our lives. So for a hot sec there, we were the Sophomore podcast. And somewhere in the process, Liesel had suggested Sophomore Citizens as a play on words of senior citizens. So it really has been a building process to get to where we are with the name, but I think we all feel more than confident that this is the name that feels right.
Oh, yes. This is our name.
This is our name.
Yeah.
This is us.
This is us.
Mm-hmm.
We're the Sophomore Citizens. And I think that also just the word citizen means that we're part of a greater community. And I feel like that's kind of part of what we want to discuss in our podcast. And we decided that each episode we're each going to bring up a controversial opinion or a hot topic or something that we kind of want to chat about, and we'll discuss it. I think sometimes maybe the topics will be a little bit more serious, and sometimes they'll be more funny and silly and just kind of random things that we feel like chatting about. And we also want our listeners to participate in our conversation and let us know what they think about our different opinions and the different topics that we bring up. So we're so excited to get started on our controversial opinions for this week. So I will be starting. My controversial opinion is that I think in college, school spirit is highly overrated.
I so disagree with you.
It's funny because I think that we each have relatively different experiences with school spirit in the collegiate realm. Liesl being an NYU graduate, arguably the least, conventional college experience that you can get, or close to it. And Lily going to University of Wisconsin-Madison. Is it one of the top 10, whatever the heck, football?
Spirited.
I haven't studied the list of top spirited universities.
But let's just say that. Let's go with it.
No.
Yes, it's always in the top.
The Big Ten, football.
I actually heard that Spoon University named it the number 1 most spirited university.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, then we're top. We're number 1. Absolutely.
And for myself, I would say Cal Poly falls in this sort of weird in-between space. Especially because also, it's sort of a weird name. Even when I'll tell people, I go to Cal Poly Southern, they're like, I'm sorry, what?
You go to a polytechnic university? What is that?
And I think there's also just, our sports aren't spectacular by any stretch of the imagination. And so the school spirit sort of comes from other aspects of the experience rather than the tailgating and the cutesy outfits and all of that stuff. So I think that we each have a very unique take on this topic, and I think I'll let Liesl first give some sort of argument or evidence for supporting her claim.
Yeah, let me unpack a little bit what I mean when I say that I think school spirit is highly overrated. I feel like school pride is different than just school spirit, and I think that having a sense of community and friendship and pride about the school that you go to is a really beautiful, powerful thing. However, I feel school spirit becomes this territorial, show-offy, competitive thing, and I think that a lot of high school students, including myself, I remember being I want to go somewhere that has school spirit, I want to rep somewhere, really spirited. And then I ended up going to NYU, which is, as Yuji was saying, a city school experience. It's not a traditional campus lifestyle. So some people might argue that there's little school spirit, but I think that there is a sense of school pride, and especially with our alumni network and everything, there is a strong sense of community, and you can definitely find that and access it, even though it's in an unconventional way. So that's why I feel school spirit in this just generic, let's just say, no shade, but USC, Trojan, tailgate, vibe, I feel that is overrated, and I think a lot of people prioritize that in their college decision process a little too much.
I think that the distinction between pride being an overwhelmingly positive feeling towards your own school and spirit sometimes taking on this competitive nature, versus mentality.
Yeah.
And Lily, I'm sure that you can speak about this because the only experience that I have, at least in my college experience, with the competitive thing is we have one soccer game a year against UCSB, and it's kind of a big thing, but not really. And I just don't really see the value in that necessarily. And even thinking back to high school when we would play, the three of us played lacrosse together in high school, and when we would play a certain high school that shall not be named, there was such a strong sense of we're gonna beat them into the dirt, whatever we gotta do to crush their souls. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
And even now when I hear about someone going to that high school, there's a little pit of anger in my soul.
And so I think that, again, there is some fun in that, but I don't necessarily see that aspect of it as more valuable than the pride aspect. And I feel a lot of CP pride. CP pride, quote unquote, is something that my friends and I throw around frequently.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, especially as a Cal Poly student going in, I think a lot of kids wind up there being oh, it just sort of was happenstance, I didn't really set out to go to this school, but here I am, and you know, I'm repping California through and through. And I think that the pride emerges from a place of like, whoa, this place is actually lit. You know what I mean? That like it unexpectedly, it takes you by surprise how much you wind up feeling fond of the school and of the town and of the people that you're with. And that's where the pride comes from. But of course, sorry that I feel like now I'm rambling a little bit, but especially coming from a school that has had its fair share of scandals, you know, as a lot of large universities do, it sometimes can feel, I don't want to say embarrassing, but like shameful to then take pride in your school, that you're like, I don't necessarily stand for some of these values or for some of the actions that have been taken against these scandals or these, you know, like, I don't want to say hate crimes, like racially charged incidences.
Yeah.
Okay, here's how I feel. So, obviously, I'm not for the gross competitive side. That's not really me. But especially going to school so far away, obviously Wisconsin is so far from California, and I didn't really know anyone going into school. The school spirit and such a strong sense of pride has made me feel more at home because I feel like I have my Wisconsin squad. So yes, when I'm cheering for the football team to like beat the other football team to the dust and freaking crush their souls, that, you know, if I take a step back and look at it, is probably not the most positive thing, but it does really make me feel like I have a community, and I love how connected I feel to anyone who has gone to my university, goes to my university, is going to my university. So that is why I love my school pride, but I struggle to know whether that's school pride or school spirit. So I don't really know where I draw the line at that.
Something about the way that you've described it in this sort of geographical sense is highlighting to me that, you know, I understand that I am biased in saying this, but I think that places such as California and New York City are desirable enough locations that there doesn't need to be, and I get that it comes down to a like feeling of comfort and hominess that you were looking for, but like I wouldn't describe Madison, Wisconsin as the most exciting, exhilarating place to be.
No.
And so it's like, I think a lot of our, and when I say our, I mean myself and Liesel's love for our colleges and our pride comes from the place and the location and all that there is to enjoy out of the place itself. Whereas like for you, Lily, Madison, Wisconsin may not offer that feeling of community and hominess or whatever. And so you look to the school pride or the school spirit for some of that, you know, sensation.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah. I would say, like, at the end of the day, moral of the story is if you're, you know, a freshman citizen listening to this podcast and you're trying to decide on where to go to college, you know, definitely look at how people feel towards the school and what sort of pride and community there is. But I think, you know, you can consider school pride and, like, people just being proud of their community that they've built as a little bit more important than just, like, oh, do people tailgate? Or, oh, do people, like, you know, go to the football games and stuff? I think that, like, there's something deeper there that's really powerful and that people should, like, be looking for. And trying to also build, like, at schools that maybe don't have as much pride. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of smaller schools where people don't really feel, like, necessarily proud to, like, go there. But, like, try to build that at your school and, like, create a sense of community that people can, like, feel strongly about, even if it's not that conventional football games, tailgating vibe. So I think that was a great little introduction discussion. Lily, do you want to bring it in with your controversial opinion?
Okay, this isn't necessarily a controversial... this is just a topic. So this is inspired by the recent Scott Disick, Sophia Richie breakup, because they obviously have an age gap of, I think, 16 years. So I just wanted to discuss age gap relationships Whether we stick to this one or talk about some other ones, that can be that. But, you know, I'm not in an age gap relationship. I am the same age as Sophia Richie, though, and the thought of dating a 37-year-old man who could literally be my father, actually, I don't think he could be my father, but could almost be my father, is a little off-putting. So, let me start with that. What does anyone else have to say?
Yeah, I think this is a topic that I have a lot of feelings about. But it's so hard because it's not black and white, and it feels like it's such a case-by-case basis sort of situation where I find some age gap relationships a little creepy, a little weird, and especially like Lily was saying, when you're the age of the younger participant and you put yourself in those shoes, you're like, what the heck? Like, how is that happening? And there was a girl who went to my middle school who I knew, and she was dating Brody Jenner. And I found that really creepy and weird. And I just, because it was like not even just a girl who's my same age, but like a girl who I literally went to school with, that she was dating this much older guy who only dates much younger girls. I think
it's the serial age gap daters that you have to watch out for.
Okay,
like Leo DiCaprio, as he ages, continuing to stay at a 20 to 25 range feels alarming.
Yeah. And I think that like Gigi and I have an interesting perspective because our parents are divorced. And, you know, both of our parents have dated different people, and especially our dad has dated a variety of ages. He's dated older than himself and much younger than himself, to be honest. And even at one point was not being completely transparent with us about the age of his partner. And, you know, it took a while for us to adjust to the idea of being closer in age to our dad's partner than he was. But I think that if you met my dad, he sort of has the spirit of a 20-something. Even some of my friends from college, like, recently met my dad, and they were like, he feels like being around somebody who's our age, which is a little unusual, but if you think about it that way and think, you know, we don't know Leonardo DiCaprio, like, we don't know what he's like. He could have a very youthful energy, and in these relationships, it could just make sense.
And I think that there is something to be said about relationships requiring that compatibility that could transcend age.
Yeah.
And I think that when you know the individuals, it's a lot easier to justify the situation based on their attributes and how those fit together, versus from afar,
it looks weird.
It's a lot easier to be judgmental about it. But specifically in the case of Scott Disick and Sophia Richie, I feel like I felt uncomfortable, I think, the way that a lot of people did about it when it first, broke. But
I mean, and she was just like 19, right? When they started
the whole
dating.
thing. And it's also, I think that is a particularly sensitive case, considering he has children with a woman who is like right around his age. And to me, that just must be such a bizarre dynamic.
Yeah.
To have like Courtney's little sister Kylie is the same age, was friends with her.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. But on the flip side to that, like, I feel slightly more understanding of their situation, considering Sophia Richie grew up in a similar kind of environment, growing up in the spotlight to a certain extent and around individuals that are of a similar kind of lifestyle, it making more sense. And I think especially considering their relationship was, I don't want to say it was long lasting, but it existed for a decent amount of time. And to me, that signals that it's not just like some super gross situation. Like, there must have been some redeeming qualities to the relationship that benefited them both. And also, I mean, anyone who watches Keeping Up with the Kardashians can see clear as day that Scott Disick, it has the maturity of a 15-year-old.
Right.
It's like, it comes as no surprise that he would go after a girl that's around her age. I just don't understand, like, how, like, to me, a key component to a good relationship is each party challenging and pushing the other to become a better person, and that there are traits in both people involved that the other find admirable. And I just don't totally see where that would fall in a relationship like Sophia Richie and Scott Disick.
Okay, well, bouncing off of that and to bring it back to the name of this podcast, Sophomore Citizens.
Lily, I was gonna say the same thing.
I'm gonna argue that if you're in the same phase of life, so if they're both in their sophomore phase of life.
And honestly, if we chunk life up into 4 different levels of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, they're probably both sophomore, and like, we're being generous.
Oh my gosh, we should have them on the podcast because they're fellow
yeah,
sophomore
let me just call her up. We did actually see her at Nobu once.
Oh my gosh, so you have the numbers.
We have the connects. But like, we're being generous that like you can date someone within a, what is that, like a 25-year group. You're good. The Sophomore Citizen podcast, we grudgingly approve. But if you're exceeding that generational gap of someone who's already in their junior year of life, I think,
because that's where I don't see that you can do the pushing, the making better that you were talking about, G. You don't seem too compatible. There are exceptions to that, like everything, I'm sure.
You know, I've also just thought of something. Another couple that comes to mind, Erica Jane and her ancient boyfriend. Husband, sorry.
Please, if you haven't watched The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, please just Google Erica Jane husband. Just look at the photos.
Take it all in.
That will give you context.
So when I think of that coupling as well, that simply they cannot be in the same. It's got to be senior citizen.
He's a senior citizen,
and she's a junior.
She's
citizen.
like a pretty young, like a younger junior.
Sure. So I mean, like, they also, you know, getting some look into their dynamic on the show. They seem to have a little something
right.
going. But at the same time, I feel like their relationship highlights this dynamic of older, rich, powerful man, younger, good-looking woman. And this is something we see across the board. Where are the cougar age gaps? Like, the long-lasting ones. Can anyone think of one?
Of a long-lasting woman is older, is what you're trying to say?
Considerably older woman.
I mean, it's just not a pattern you see. It's just not a pattern you see. Because, in my opinion, this is controversial. Like, women are a little smarter and more mature than men. And I think that that's why men can age down, you know, with women.
And women can age up.
And women typically want to date men who are older, like, throughout, or the same age throughout most of life. Because, you know, women have a certain maturity about them, generally speaking. I'm not saying all women are more mature than all men, but women sort of have, like, a little bit more of a maturity level where I think a 40-year-old woman, when I think about what a typical 40-year-old woman has experienced in her life, she is not, like, getting into a long-term relationship with a 23-year-old boy. You know?
Certainly not. She's having fun with her 23-year-old boy.
Right. And it's short lasting and then it's over, like, if that's what she wants to do.
Totally.
So that is an interesting question, Jeej, to ask about, like, how we do see in Hollywood, like, we see these older men who do stay with younger women for at least 2, 3, 4 years.
Or indefinitely.
Yeah. It's crazy. All right. I think that we sufficiently covered that. Lily, do you have
so too.
A final statement on age gap relationships?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah. My final statement.
Okay, Jeej.
Do what you want.
Yeah, you do you, of course, and I think that that's something we'll probably come back to a lot on this podcast.
Of course.
You know, we're not here to judge, except we are. That's actually our job. So, sorry if we judged you today, and we still love you anyway. All right, Gigi, we have been waiting for her controversial opinion. She has had this brewing in her head for a couple weeks now. Hit it with us.
So, like most of America and the world at large.
Oh, wow, okay.
My dear sister and I have been watching movie after movie after movie during quarantine. It's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
So one fateful afternoon, we are scrolling through Netflix trying to decide what we'd like to view. And we see The Social Network. A movie I think I've seen once or twice before, but, didn't remember the details of. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's got Justin Timberlake. I feel good about it. Let's have a viewing party. So as we're watching, and I watch, Mark Zuckerberg rise to the top with his breakthrough website, The Facebook.
Yeah.
Its origin story really centers around the college experience and sort of maximizing the social aspect of the college experience with the use of technology, right?
And in a lot of cases, streamlining it. Like,
Totally.
For example, relationship status, which in the movie is sort of this funny little part where this guy is like, oh, I wonder if Jessica in my econ class is single. And Mark Zuckerberg realizes that should be plastered. It's not like everyone walks around with a sign that says single or in a relationship. Let's slap that on your Facebook.
Exactly. So, essentially, I, am thinking back to my own personal experiences with Facebook. I recall Lily and I in 6th grade being like,
It's time.
or maybe it was 7th. Was it 7th?
It was on my 13th birthday
Okay,
because Gigi, her birthday is before mine, so she was 13 a few months before I was, and you need to be 13 to
and
legally make
we're
your
rule
Facebook.
followers here at Sophomore
We are
Citizens.
rule followers. So I remember we did my birthday festivities, and then we sat down at the computers next to each other and made our Facebook.
And this was not the first time Lily and I had sat down at the computers. We spent our childhood playing computer games left and right. We're not novices here. We plop our butts down and we're getting right to it on Facebook. And of course, it's exhilarating getting to create a profile, getting to stalk others, post photos, and I'm just immediately transported back to this utopian social networking experience.
what in the world is your controversial
So,
topic?
I know,
This
none
is
of
quite
what-
the
This
lead up.
is a lead-in.
So the controversial topic is that at its core, Facebook is the single best social networking site. Now, I understand that may not be the case today. Liesl and I just the other day were talking about how fucking annoying it is. I've just realized we haven't cursed yet, and here it is.
Yeah, we're
how
trying to be
fucking annoying
Oh, wow.
it is that Facebook is literally scrounging for people to hop on there, telling me, oh, Lily Zoller commented on Liesl's post.
No, but it's not even Lily Zoller. It's like Joe Schmo, who you friended in 7th grade, made a post. That's a notification now.
And of course, I'm like, get out of here with that, Facebook. I don't want any of this crap. The only reason I still even consider giving you a shred of my attention is because there's events. And I mean, even in COVID, there's 0 events. So Facebook, you're useless to me
Right.
at this time. But this conversation is supposed to be centered around the fact that Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, Tumblr, whatever, TikTok, none of them have the centralized stalking capabilities that Facebook once had. The fact that you could go onto someone's Facebook and just get lost.
No, their date of birth, every relationship they've ever been in, every friend they've ever had. On Facebook, you could go on there and you could find out everything you need to know about a person. And you can't do that on Instagram because the bio is 4 words and you have to scroll back to even just find their birthday.
Or if you're trying to find out if they're in a relationship, you have to
It's
go to
impossible.
anniversary post. It's not an easy, streamlined system. And on top of that, it's Facebook was a place where I would argue there is a more authentic representation of your life because there are so many different types of posts and ways that you can interact with the website and the app. Whereas Instagram is so highly curated these days, and I just don't feel like I can get an accurate read on someone on Instagram.
Right.
Or even Twitter sometimes. Facebook was the place where you could put all your photos, all your reposted links, all your thoughts. You'd be like,
I'm hungry right now.
right now. Or feeling tired. Like my status for a truth is, and you get that juicy fucking gossip on people's pages.
Right.
What's better than that? And, you know, I'm not saying that we can go back to those golden ages, but there's a part of me that wishes that we could.
Can you please tell me what your topic is? Because I really am still unsure.
Did I not clearly
Are you saying that Facebook is the best social networking site?
At its core, yes. Like,
okay.
when we strip it down, yes.
And really think about it. Okay. I have some counterpoints on at its core. I agree with you right now, Jeej. I think that there's two main things that I want to say. First thing is that Facebook has a lot of sus stuff around it. Like a lot of scandal,
Totally.
a lot of information hacking,
Totally.
a lot of stealing your data. There's a lot of controversy on Facebook. And I think that is one major issue on Facebook that genuinely no other social platform has. Like, they just don't have the level of scandal that Facebook has had, and maybe that's just because it's been around so long. The other thing that I think is because Facebook does everything, it doesn't do anything that well.
It's like Cheesecake Factory.
It's a little like Cheesecake
Menu
Factory.
is too big, nothing's that good.
Yeah, exactly, Lily. You know, the menu is 17 pages, and so none of the dishes are really shining. And
No specialties.
There's,
Except Skinnylicious.
the Skinnylicious menu is pretty great, but, you know, so it's like Instagram is able to just focus on images, you know? That's it. Another thing about Facebook that I think really contributed, in my opinion, to its just, like, dumpster fire downfall is the video content on there. There was a point where you could only go on Facebook and you would only see videos. Like
Tasty BuzzFeed.
Random tasty BuzzFeed and just video. And it's like, if I wanted to watch videos from random people, I would go to YouTube. Like, I want to see people posting albums. I want to see people posting their opinions. Like, it became not about real people, and
Totally.
It became more about, like, posting random ass videos.
And also, I mean, of course, the introduction of advertisements totally contributed to the dumpster fire.
Right. Lil, what do you think?
I don't use Facebook that much currently. But here's what I have to say. Is that when I think of a social networking site, I think of a place that connects people and builds or rebuilds relationships. And I feel like because Facebook, you have tons of friends and all of the capabilities, like you said, Liesl, really big menu, no specialty. I don't think that I mean, I'm also not that old in the grand scheme of the world, only a sophomore. It has led me to link and build. Whereas other social networking sites, for example, I mean, I am an avid and obnoxious user of Snapchat, so I'm going to talk about that for a second, has strengthened my relationships with people by keeping me in constant contact with them. And on Facebook, I don't feel like, I don't feel like that's happening, but whether that's because it fell and so people aren't as active on it, or if it's just because you have so many friends and such a wide, like, age range of friends on Facebook, I don't feel that I'm really linked to my Facebook friends in the same way that I feel like I'm a little more connected to my Instagram friends and way more connected to my Snapchat friends because that's a one-on-one sort of deal. But I do think that Facebook has incredible stalking capabilities, and I think that's pretty hard to refute. But I don't know, I'm on the fence.
I think that you touched on something really true, Lily, that, like, there's this ubiquity with Facebook. It's like you're friends with everyone, your family friends, your random cousins, like people you barely know you have on Facebook. And I think that when that started to happen, where it wasn't just like everyone I know from school, when it became my aunts and my uncles and my grandparents and whatever, you're less likely to want to share like your authentic self on that platform. Like, I don't want to post like an album of like a college party on Facebook anymore because I don't want my aunt like commenting on it, you know? And I feel like Instagram and Snapchat and now even TikTok, like, they get to be more exclusive and more they've maintained this like young audience generally, you know, and that's not to say like there aren't parents on Instagram, but it's less like, oh, I would have my Aunt Becky on my Instagram, you know? But this is such a tricky topic, and I'm really curious to see where social media continues to go, because I would almost like to see a new platform, like you're saying, Jeej, that gives us like a little bit more information, or if Instagram was able to kind of find a way, especially like with events. I would love for events to leave Facebook so I never have to go on there, you know, but it doesn't really work on any other sites.
And I think that, as you're saying, we look forward to seeing where social media will go, because it would be naive to assume that Instagram, Snapchat are sticking around forever as we know them.
Right.
And I really do think, and I hope, that there is room for another platform to take center stage that does do a better job of providing a more authentic experience and being able to present yourself in a more authentic way, that does really give people the opportunity to connect with each other in a meaningful way. Because I think that we're kidding ourselves if we think that social media is really like making us more connected and helping us have meaningful interactions with each other.
Right.
Because I can agree, like, even for example, as Lily is saying, we definitely use Snapchat in different ways, but like there are friends who, let's just say I see their Snapchat story or something, it's pretty like non-threatening for me to just respond to their story or something like that. And even a small interaction like that with someone from high school, let's say, I appreciate getting to have that small moment with them to be like, oh, hey, I am thinking of you, or this made me feel something, or whatever, that I otherwise would not have had any interaction if it required me going out of my way to text or call or see that person. But at the same time, me responding to someone's story is not what I would consider a meaningful interaction.
Right. Definitely. Well, I think we opened up a really good conversation about, like, should we bring Facebook back? How should we continue to use Facebook? Is Facebook the best? These are all really, I think, vital questions to humanity. And I'm really glad that we got to discuss those today. I feel like we had a great first episode. I think Lily, Gigi, and I are really excited to continue to grow and learn on this podcast. And at the end of the day, we really just want to have fun, record our conversations, share them with other people, and we really hope that at least some people listen to this episode and enjoy it and maybe share their opinions on these topics on our Instagram that we have, or in the reviews, or whatever platform. Let us know what you think about these topics. I think at the end of each episode, we might want to share some recommendations or tell you some things that we've been watching, listening to, reading, etc. So I have decided what the recommendation of the end of our first podcast will be, which is the book or the TV series Normal People. So this was a book that I first read, I think in like December or January, and I really liked it. I didn't like absolutely love it, like live and die for it, but I really liked it, and I ended up recommending Gigi and Lily to read it. And then I think when Lily read it is when we actually found out that it was being made into a series, a TV show on Hulu. So that kind of made us even more excited, and I think it's really fun to compare a book to a TV show and kind of get both of those mediums and then get to discuss it with your friends. So I would definitely recommend reading the book and watching the TV show, and especially because I sort of had the opinion that the TV show and the book were really good representations of one another, and that they were kind of like equally good in my mind. Lily?
I did not love the TV show. I mean, I didn't absolutely love the book, but I would absolutely say that I liked the book much better than the TV show.
Yeah, and I think that there's other people who would say they like loved the TV show and didn't like the book. So that is our recommendation for you all, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it in the next episode, or maybe not. All right, well, this is us signing off on the first episode of Sophomore Citizens.
Oh my gosh.
Woo! Can't believe we finally did it. We've been talking about starting a podcast for so long. So we're so happy.
See you guys next time.
Bye.